We're on our way to the memorial chapel built to remember King Ludwig II of Bavaria. It was built some 3 years after he was found floating face down in this lake the day after he was removed from his office as king. They said he was mentally unfit and unable to rule. He was locked away near here in an estate converted to an asylum, and on the day after he was committed, at about 6:30 in the evening, he took a walk with his doctor. Both were found dead around 10:30 at night, right where the cross is put in the water in front of the chapel. They say he drowned. Most don't believe it. When we talk about the humanities, we like to talk about periods. We like to talk about the Gothic period, the Romantic period, the Romanesque period, the Classical period, because it gives us categories in which we can plug things in. The trouble with that is that these periods keep on coming back over and over and over again. What's important to understand is that the humanities isn't made up of periods as much as it's made up of ideas. And these ideas give birth to styles. And these styles then in turn express the ideas again. And every time the ideas come back, the styles come back. This building behind me is a chapel that was built in memory of King Ludwig II of Bavaria, who died on this spot, actually in the lake to the left of us here, in 1886. A tragic incident that basically ended the life of what might have been an extraordinary king of Bavaria much, much too early. This chapel expresses an idea, and the style that it expresses best is the Romanesque style. The Roman architect Vitruvius might well be responsible for what became the Romanesque style, based not on the ideas associated with the Romanesque, but on the need for practical government buildings. He wrote a great deal, but we only know of one building that he claimed to have actually built. It was built in the Italian city of Fano, but no one knows where it was exactly, and no one knows what it looked like exactly. But for more than 1,000 years, builders made it a footprint for saying the kinds of things that the Romans were known for. We don't have a drawing of his design, but a lot of translators since 1500 have tried to replicate it from his writings. It was called a basilica. It would have been a rectangular building with a large open space in the middle for public gatherings, and often had side spaces made up of rows of semi-private places for smaller meetings. At one end was a great Roman arch. Underneath it, the powerful and wealthy would conduct their business. The Roman Empire fell, but architecture doesn't disappear as fast as empires do. And when Christianity swept across Europe, they found these basilicas were ideally suited to worship and easily adapted as churches, like this one in Trier in Germany. It began as a Roman basilica built by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. The meeting space became the nave, and the enormous Roman arch at the end of the nave became the meeting place of a different kind of power, that of the sacraments and the preaching of the gospel. So what's the Romanesque idea supposed to express? It's supposed to express power. It's supposed to express strength. But it's also supposed to express a kind of security, a feeling of being enclosed, a feeling of being protected from the outside world. And when you think of King Ludwig II, you can see why it is that this kind of building was built for him as a way of saying, you're taken care of. You're no longer threatened by the world that's outside you. You can feel a sense of security. Roman architecture was so easily replicated, and the designs so simple, and they were so practical that they were the style of choice for castles and fortresses and churches and all kinds of buildings. As post-Roman Europe became more lawless and people became more paranoid, the walls got taller and thicker, and the windows got smaller. They told invading forces that you can batter our walls for as long as you like, you'll never get in. And this is the same message that churches wanted the world to hear too. We're the faithful, and we won't be routed.
Soon the walls became too heavy to stand up on their own, so tall stone supports called buttresses were fastened to the outside wall to give it more strength. Windows were moved up higher on the walls so they wouldn't take up valuable space that they needed for wall supports. And in time, all these features became more or less symbolic. Ludwig II of Bavaria never much liked being in the public eye. So when his mother, who was heartbroken by the death of this powerful but terribly delicate man, wanted to build a chapel that kept him and his memory somehow protected, she built it in the Romanesque style. It's tall and heavy. It's supported by squat Romanesque columns with square capitals made to look like they were bearing all the weight of the world. There are multiple arch supports, not for show, but to symbolize the security he might feel inside this extraordinary building. The windows were put high up on the wall so that a little light could make it in, but not much else.
So here you have it. You have a Romanesque building built in a very romantic place, meant to say what it was intended to say, which is, Ludwig, you're safe now. You're in a place where you can feel as though the world is not crowding in on you. You have the Romanesque arches, you have the windows, you have the buttresses. You even have that sweet little rose window over the little tiny back door with the cross overhead saying to Ludwig, here is a place that you can finally feel safe.
Ludwig II's private secretary, Ludwig von Berkel, tells a story about trying to get the king to go out and meet his people. I pressed him, von Berkel writes, telling him how his people love him and what a reception Munich would give him after all these years. I can't, he cried. It's dreadful. I can't any longer stand being stared at by thousands of people. I can't stand having to smile and to bow 1,000 times, having to ask questions of people who are nothing to me and listen to answers that bore me. I can't come out of my shell. Not ever again. Then softly and sadly he added, sometimes when I'm tired of reading, and everything is silent as the grave, I feel an irresistible need to hear a human voice. So I call a servant, and I get him to tell me about his home and his family. And it tore my heartstrings when he concluded by saying, if I didn't, I would lose the power of speech.